My name is Veronica, and I'm 25 years old. I grew up as the forgotten daughter, always living in the shadow of my miracle sister Ashley. My parents treated her like royalty, while I became invisible in my own home. Everything changed the night Dad found drugs in my room that Ashley planted there. Out! I won't have this in my house, he screamed, forcing me to leave at 3 a.m. with nowhere to go. Before I share what happened 7 years later, let me know where you're watching from, and hit that subscribe button to join me on this emotional journey of betrayal and unexpected resolution. I was once my parents' whole world. For the first 10 years of my life, I had a normal, happy childhood with James and Diana Wilson, my father and mother. Dad worked as a financial advisor at a prestigious firm downtown, and Mom taught piano lessons from our cozy suburban home in Connecticut. We weren't wealthy, but we lived comfortably in a 4-bedroom house with a spacious backyard, where Dad would push me on the swing every weekend. "Higher, Daddy, higher," I'd squeal, and he'd laugh, pushing me until I felt like I could touch the clouds. Those early memories still bring tears to my eyes. The way Mom would tuck me in at night reading one more story, even when it was way past bedtime. The special Saturday morning pancakes Dad made with chocolate chips arranged into smiley faces. The way they'd both attend every school play sitting front row beaming with pride. But everything changed when my parents decided they wanted another child. I was about 6 when I first overheard them discussing it. I didn't understand then what trying meant, or why Mom sometimes cried behind closed doors. "It'll happen when the time is right," Grandma Wilson would say, patting Mom's hand during Sunday dinners. But as months turned into years, the light in my mother's eyes dimmed. Doctor visits became frequent. Terminology I didn't understand filled our home fertility treatments, hormone therapy, in vitro fertilization. Each procedure brought renewed hope followed by crushing disappointment. I witnessed 3 miscarriages between ages 6 and 10. Each time our home descended into a hushed, grief-filled space. Dad threw himself into work, staying later at the office, while Mom would spend days in bed. During these periods, I'd often stay with Grandma Wilson or Aunt Marie. "Your mommy just needs some time," Aunt Marie would explain, brushing my hair before bed during these extended stays. "It's nothing you did wrong, honey." But children internalize what they don't understand. Part of me wondered if I wasn't enough, if I had somehow disappointed them by being just me. Maybe if I were a better daughter, they wouldn't need another child so desperately. When I was 10, everything changed. Mom had stopped treatments, resigned to having just one child. The doctors had told them to accept reality. But then the miracle happened. Mom was pregnant, and this time it stuck. The pregnancy was treated like a sacred event. Dad hired help to clean the house and prepare meals so Mom could rest. The spare bedroom was transformed into an elaborate nursery with hand-painted clouds on the ceiling and custom furniture. Family members brought gifts constantly. Mom glowed with happiness I hadn't seen in years. Ashley Marie Wilson arrived on a sunny April morning. 7 pounds 8 ounces of screaming perfection. I stood in the hospital room looking at the tiny bundle in my mother's arms, not realizing this moment marked the beginning of my invisibility. "Isn't she perfect, Veronica?" Mom whispered, tears streaming down her face. Dad stood beside them, one hand on Ashley's tiny head, the other clutching Mom's shoulder, his own eyes wet with emotion. I nodded, trying to share in their joy. "She's really small." "She's your sister," Dad said. "You're going to help take care of her, right? Be the best big sister ever." I promised I would, eager to please, unaware of how that role would come to define and diminish me. The family dynamics shifted immediately and dramatically. Grandma and Grandpa Wilson, who had always snuck me extra cookies and brought me special little gifts, now arrived with arms full of presents for Ashley and quick pats on the head for me. "How's our miracle baby" became the standard greeting, not "How are the girls?" only Aunt Marie, Mom's younger sister, seemed to notice. During Ashley's christening reception, she found me sitting alone on the stairs while everyone clustered around the baby. "Quite the commotion over your sister, huh?" she said, sitting beside me with 2 slices of cake. "Everyone loves her a lot," I replied, accepting the cake gratefully. "They're excited because she's new," Aunt Marie explained. "But never forget you're just as special, Veronica." Those words meant everything, but they couldn't shield me from what was coming. As weeks turned to months and months to years, the pattern solidified. Ashley wasn't just loved, she was worshipped. And I wasn't just overlooked. I was relegated to background status in the family I'd once been the center of. I was no longer the daughter. I was the other one, the one who came before the miracle. By the time Ashley turned 5 and I was 15, the contrast in how we were treated had become glaring and painful. Every aspect of our lives reflected the unspoken family hierarchy, where Ashley reigned supreme and I existed on the periphery. Our birthdays told the story clearly. My 15th birthday arrived on a crisp October day, and I came downstairs to find Mom making breakfast as usual. There was no special meal, no decorations, not even a happy birthday, until I mentioned it was my special day. "Oh, of course, honey, happy birthday," Mom said hurriedly, flipping pancakes. "We'll have cake after dinner, but Dad has that client meeting tonight, so we'll keep it simple." Simple meant a store-bought cake and a gift card to my favorite clothing store. No party, no friends over, no fuss. 2 months later, when Ashley turned 5, our house transformed into a fairy tale wonderland. Mom spent weeks planning ordering custom decorations, arranging for a professional photographer, and booking a princess character to entertain 15 kindergartners. Dad took the day off work helping to set up the bounce house in our backyard, despite the December chill. The cake was a 3-tier masterpiece from an upscale bakery, and Ashley received so many presents they couldn't fit in her already overflowing toy room. "Isn't this excessive?" Aunt Marie murmured to my father as Ashley unwrapped her 20th gift. "Nothing's too much for our miracle," Dad replied, filming every moment on his expensive camera. I sat in the corner helping younger kids with juice boxes and cleaning up discarded wrapping paper. No one seemed to notice I was there, except when Mom needed another garbage bag or more napkins. This pattern repeated with clothes. Ashley wore boutique outfits each season, bringing a new wardrobe. Meanwhile, I received hand-me-downs from cousins or basic items from department store sales. When I asked for a particular brand of jeans that everyone at school was wearing, Dad lectured me about materialism. "You don't need designer clothes to get an education," he said sternly. The very next day, he brought home a beautiful winter coat for Ashley because she saw it in a catalog and loved the color. Family photos on our walls told their own story. Ashley front and center and most me off to the side, or sometimes cropped partially out of the frame. The largest portrait in our living room showed Ashley at age 3 in an elaborate dress posed professionally. There wasn't a single solo photo of me anywhere downstairs. Even family vacations centered around Ashley's interests and preferences. When we visited Disney World, we spent 3 full days doing activities Ashley wanted, standing in long lines for princess meet and greets. The one attraction I had been excited about, a behind-the-scenes engineering tour, was dismissed because it wouldn't be fair to make Ashley wait around. Despite the constant favoritism at home, I threw myself into school and excelled academically. I maintained straight A's, joined the debate team, and was elected treasurer of the student council. My achievements brought me validation I couldn't find at home, though even these successes were diminished in my parents' eyes. When I won first place in the regional debate championship, Mom and Dad attended, but spent most of the event on their phones. Dad left immediately after my final round, not even staying for the awards ceremony, because Ashley had a minor cold and he wanted to check on his baby girl. In contrast, when Ashley struggled with basic reading in first grade, my parents hired an expensive tutor and scheduled daily practice sessions. Mom joined the PTA specifically to monitor Ashley's classroom experience. Any small improvement in Ashley's performance was celebrated extravagantly, with trips for ice cream and special certificates hung prominently on the refrigerator. "Some children just learn differently," Mom would explain to relatives defending Ashley's academic challenges. Yet when I brought home perfect report cards, they were glanced at briefly and tucked away without comment. My salvation came in the form of my best friend Samantha Lopez, who I met in freshman year English class. Sam came from a large, boisterous family, where everyone fought for attention, but also clearly loved each other equally. The first time she came to my house for a study session, she noticed the dynamic immediately. "Does your sister always interrupt you 20 times when you're trying to talk?" she asked after Ashley had barged into my room repeatedly, each time being gently redirected by Mom, rather than scolded for disturbing us. "Pretty much," I admitted. "She's the miracle child." "And what does that make you the unfortunate accident?" Sam said with characteristic bluntness. I had laughed, but her words struck a nerve. Sam's house became my refuge. Her parents invited me for dinner regularly, and her mother Elena always made a point to ask about my achievements and interests. "We heard about your debate win, Veronica," Elena said one evening. "That's impressive commitment and talent." I nearly cried at the simple acknowledgement. As high school progressed, I focused on building my future beyond my family's shadow. I researched colleges far from home, applied for scholarships, and pictured a life where I wasn't defined by being Ashley's sister. My high school graduation should have been a triumphant moment. Instead, it became another painful memory. The ceremony was scheduled for 3 p.m. on a Saturday. Ashley, now 8, had a dance recital at 5 p.m. across town. Rather than asking Ashley to miss her recital, my parents attended only the first half of my graduation. "We're so proud of you," Mom whispered, hugging me quickly after I returned to my seat following my walk across the stage. "But we need to get Ashley to her performance. You understand, right?" I nodded, automatically numb to the hurt. Dad patted my shoulder awkwardly. "Good job, kiddo. We'll celebrate tomorrow." They left while the principal was still reading names. The promised celebration never happened because Ashley came home with a stomachache from eating too much ice cream after her recital, and the household revolved around comforting her. I spent that night with Sam's family, who took me out for a proper graduation dinner and gave me a beautiful journal with an inscription that read, "Your story is just beginning. Write it your way." 2 months later, I packed my belongings and headed to Berkshire University, 800 miles away. As Dad helped unload my suitcases, his parting words were, "Don't forget to call your sister. She's going to miss you." I wondered if anyone would notice how much I needed to be missed too. College was liberation. For the first time, I existed as just Veronica, not the shadow of the miracle child. At Berkshire University, no one knew Ashley. No one compared us or automatically assumed she was more deserving of attention and care. I could finally breathe. My dormitory room was small, and I shared it with a girl named Taylor from Wisconsin, who studied engineering and kept odd hours. But it was mine in a way no space had been before. I arranged my books and possessions exactly as I wanted. I chose when to sleep and wake, what to eat, and how to spend every minute of my day. "You seem really organized," Taylor commented during our first week together. "Like you've been planning for college your whole life." "In some ways I have been," I replied, not explaining further. I declared a major in business administration with a minor in marketing. Classes challenged me in ways I welcomed, and professors noticed my contributions. During the first semester, my economics professor asked me to stay after class. "Your analysis of the market trends case study was exceptional," Professor Harrington said. "Have you considered joining the Business Leaders Association? They could use sharp minds like yours." This simple recognition nearly brought me to tears. I joined the association and several other campus organizations, building a social circle and professional network simultaneously. Friends came naturally once I wasn't being overshadowed. I connected with Zoe in my marketing class, Jackson from the Business Association, and Daniel from the campus newspaper, where I wrote a weekly column on financial literacy for students. We formed a tight-knit group that studied together, celebrated birthdays, and supported each other through exams and relationship dramas. During those college years, I maintained minimal contact with my family. I called home once a week as promised, but the conversations were always the same. "How's school?" Mom would ask. "Good." I'd reply, then share something specific like a successful project or campus event. "That's nice, dear. Oh, did I tell you Ashley made the junior choir? She's got such a beautiful voice. Everyone says she could be on Broadway someday." And just like that, the conversation would turn to Ashley's latest accomplishment or challenge, leaving my experiences unexplored. Christmas and summer breaks were exercises in patience. I'd return home to find Ashley's school artwork plastered across the refrigerator, while my Dean's List certificate went unmentioned. My old bedroom gradually transformed into an extension of Ashley's domain, with her overflow toys and clothes taking up my closet space because she simply has so many beautiful things. During my junior year, I intentionally sought internship opportunities that would keep me away from home for summer break. I landed a position with a marketing firm in Chicago, staying in subsidized student housing and reveling in the continued independence. By senior year, I had job offers already lined up thanks to networking and internship connections. My graduation ceremony approached, and surprisingly, my entire family attended, including Grandma and Grandpa Wilson and Aunt Marie. "We wouldn't miss it," Mom said when I expressed surprise that they'd all made the trip. "It's not every day our daughter graduates with honors." For one brief moment, I felt truly seen. Then Ashley tugged on Mom's sleeve. "The ceremony's really long. Can we leave early for that restaurant I saw? I'm starving." Mom and Dad exchanged glances. "Well, we did make reservations," Dad began. Aunt Marie interrupted sharply. "James, your daughter is graduating summa cum laude. The restaurant will wait." They stayed through the ceremony, but left immediately after for the restaurant Ashley had chosen, barely giving me time to take photos with my friends. The conversation during our celebration dinner centered around Ashley's upcoming middle school graduation and her dreams of becoming a singer. Despite these disappointments, I felt optimistic about my future. I had accepted a job with Bennett Marketing Associates in Seattle, 3,000 miles from Connecticut. The distance felt necessary and healing. But then the 2008 recession hit, sending shockwaves through the economy. 2 weeks before I was set to start, I received a devastating email. Bennett Marketing was implementing a hiring freeze and rescinding offers to new graduates. Suddenly, my carefully constructed escape plan crumbled. After dozens of frantic applications and interviews, the reality became clear: the job market was collapsing, and recent graduates were among the hardest hit. "You can always come home until things improve," Mom suggested during our weekly call. "Your old room is still there, mostly." The thought made my stomach clench, but my dwindling bank account left few alternatives. With my tail between my legs, I packed my college life into boxes and returned to the house I'd been so desperate to escape. Ashley, now 15, greeted my return with obvious displeasure. "Why does she have to stay in my craft room?" she demanded when Dad carried my suitcases into what had once been my bedroom, but was now filled with Ashley's sewing machine fabric scraps and half-finished projects. "It's still Veronica's room too, sweetie," Mom said without conviction. "We'll make space." "Whatever," Ashley huffed, flipping her blonde hair dramatically. "Just don't touch my stuff." I squeezed my belongings into one corner and slept on a twin bed surrounded by mannequins draped in Ashley's fashion experiments. Each night, I applied for jobs determined to make this homecoming temporary. After 3 weeks of searching, I found a position as an administrative assistant at a local insurance company. The pay was modest and far from my career goals, but it offered escape during daylight hours and income to save for my eventual departure. Meanwhile, Ashley had transformed from the worshipped miracle child into a teenager who wielded her power with practiced precision. She had mastered the art of manipulating our parents, switching between adoring daughter and wounded victim as it suited her needs. "I need $200 for this school trip," she'd announce at dinner. "That's quite expensive," Dad would begin cautiously. Ashley's eyes would immediately fill with tears. "Everyone else is going. Do you want me to be the only one left out? Haven't I worked hard enough to deserve this?" The money always appeared, no questions asked. I watched this pattern repeat with growing concern, noticing other troubling signs. Ashley's group of friends seemed to change frequently, with each new crowd looking progressively older and less focused on school activities. Her once impeccable grades slipped, but Mom made excuses to teachers about artistic temperament and test anxiety. Most alarming were the physical changes. Ashley's eyes often looked glazed, her speech sometimes slurred. She'd come home at odd hours smelling of cigarettes and claiming she'd been at study group. Money and small valuables began disappearing around the house. When I tried to talk to my parents, they dismissed my concerns immediately. "You're just jealous because she's more socially successful than you were at her age," Mom snapped after I mentioned Ashley's strange behavior at breakfast. "Ashley would never steal," Dad said firmly when I suggested she might be taking the missing items. "She has everything she needs, we make sure of that." The irony wasn't lost on me. The more Ashley acted out, the more they protected and defended her. Meanwhile, I worked 50-hour weeks, contributed to household expenses, and received criticism for not spending enough time with the family. One evening, while doing laundry in the basement, I found a small baggie of pills tucked into Ashley's jeans pocket. My heart sank. This wasn't typical teenage rebellion. My sister was in serious trouble. I decided to approach her directly, waiting until our parents had gone to bed. "We need to talk," I said, entering our shared bedroom where Ashley was texting rapidly on her phone. "I'm busy," she replied without looking up. I sat on my bed holding out the baggie. "I found these in your pocket. Do you want to explain before Mom and Dad find out?" Ashley's head snapped up, her eyes narrowing dangerously. "Give those back, now!" "Not until we talk about this. Ashley, these are dangerous. Where did you get them?" She lunged forward, grabbing for the baggie, but I held it away. Her face transformed with rage. "You think they'll believe you over me? That's pathetic," she hissed. "I'll tell them you're lying to get attention, that you're jealous of me, that you've always been jealous." "This isn't about me," I insisted. "It's about getting you help before something terrible happens." Ashley's laugh was cold and knowing beyond her years. "I don't need help. I need you gone. They'll always choose me over you. Always. Remember that." She stormed out, slamming the door behind her. Shaken, I hid the pills in my desk drawer, unsure what to do next. The next day, I called Aunt Marie for advice. We met for coffee away from the house, and I explained everything. "I've noticed changes in her, too," Aunt Marie admitted. Diana and James are so afraid of losing their miracle that they can't see she's in trouble. What should I do if I go to Mom and Dad directly? They'll just accuse me of trying to make Ashley look bad. Aunt Marie squeezed my hand. Give me the pills. I'll find a way to address this that won't immediately put you in the crossfire. I handed over the baggie, feeling slightly relieved to share the burden. That week, a potential solution to my living situation emerged. Jackson, my college friend, called with news about a marketing coordinator position opening at his company in Boston. The hiring manager is my roommate's sister, he explained excitedly. I showed her some of your campaign projects from senior year, and she wants to interview you. It's perfect timing because their current coordinator just gave 2 weeks' notice. For the first time in months, I felt hope. Boston was only 2 hours away, a manageable distance if family emergencies arose, but far enough to establish independence. The interview went brilliantly, and I received an offer the following day. I got a job in Boston, I announced at dinner that evening. I'll be moving in 2 weeks. Mom looked surprised. That's very sudden. Are you sure about this? I've been applying for marketing positions for months, I reminded her. This is exactly what I went to school for. Dad frowned slightly. We've gotten used to having you around, and you've been helping with expenses. The subtext was clear: my departure would impact their budget and convenience. Not once did they express pride or congratulations. I need to build my career, I said firmly. I'll help find someone to take over my room. Ashley remained unusually quiet during this conversation, studying me with calculating eyes. Looking back, I should have recognized the danger in her silence. The next few days passed in a blur of preparation. I gave notice at the insurance company, began apartment hunting online, and sorted through my possessions. Ashley and I barely spoke, passing like strangers in the bedroom we reluctantly shared. Then came the night that would change everything. We had a family dinner, unusually pleasant and calm. Ashley was uncharacteristically helpful, offering to clear plates and serve dessert. Let me get more napkins, she said, moving toward the kitchen. Passing behind Dad's chair, she stumbled slightly, spilling her glass of red wine down his back. I'm so sorry, she gasped, as Dad jumped up, his white shirt stained crimson. It's fine, princess, accidents happen, he assured her, though clearly annoyed. I'll need to change before this sets in. Use one of my shirts, I offered automatically. Top drawer of my dresser. They're all clean. Dad nodded gratefully and headed upstairs. The moment he was gone, I noticed something strange in Ashley's expression. A flicker of satisfaction quickly masked by continued apologies as she helped Mom clean up the spill. 10 minutes later, a roar came from upstairs. Veronica, get up here now! The tone in my father's voice sent ice through my veins. I exchanged confused glances with Mom before hurrying upstairs. Dad stood in our bedroom doorway, his face contorted with rage, holding something in his hand. As I got closer, I realized with horror what it was: a small bag of white powder and several pills. What is this? He demanded, shaking the bag in my face. I don't know, I stammered, genuinely confused. That's not mine. It was in your drawer under your shirts. Don't lie to me. My mind raced, trying to process what was happening. Dad, I swear I've never seen that before. Ashley appeared behind me, her expression a perfect mask of shock and disappointment. Oh my God, Veronica, how could you? And then it clicked. The spilled wine, the suggestion to check my drawer, Ashley's strange behavior, the threat they'll always choose me over you. Dad, listen to me, I pleaded. This isn't mine. I think Ashley planted it. His face darkened further. Blaming your 15-year-old sister, that's low even for you. James, what's happening? Mom appeared, looking concerned. Dad thrust the bag toward her. Our college graduate is keeping drugs in her room, under our roof. Mom gasped, hands flying to her mouth. Veronica, how could you? It's not mine, I insisted, tears forming. I would never. You have to believe me. Then whose is it? Dad demanded. Did it magically appear in your drawer? I looked directly at Ashley, who was now clinging to Mom's arm, playing the frightened younger sister to perfection. Ask Ashley. She threatened me just last week, said she'd make sure I left sooner than planned. That's a lie, Ashley cried, tears streaming down her face. Why are you always so mean to me? I never did anything to you. Dad's face transformed from anger to pure fury. Out! I won't have this in my house. Not the drugs, not the lies, and certainly not blaming an innocent child for your mistakes. Dad, please, I begged, panic rising. Just listen to me for once in your life. I'm telling the truth. Pack your things, he ordered, voice cold and final. You're leaving tonight. James, Mom interjected weakly. It's already late. Maybe we should discuss this in the morning. There's nothing to discuss. I will not have drugs in my house or someone who brings them here. Ashley sobbed dramatically into Mom's shoulder, while shooting me a quick, triumphant glance that only I could see. I stood frozen, the injustice crushing my chest. You've never believed in me. Never chosen me. Not once. Don't make this about childhood jealousy, Dad dismissed. This is about breaking our trust and our rules. You have 30 minutes to pack what you can carry. Then I want you gone. Mom said nothing, her silence a final betrayal. She led Ashley away, comforting the architect of my destruction, while I was left alone with my father's rage. In a daze, I stuffed clothes and essential documents into my backpack and a small duffel bag. My mind raced through options. It was past midnight. I had some savings, but not enough for a hotel for more than a few days. As I zipped my bags, Dad appeared in the doorway. Time's up. Can I at least explain to Mom? I asked, voice breaking. She doesn't want to see you right now. She's too upset. He escorted me downstairs into the front door like a security guard removing an intruder. As I stepped onto the porch, cold rain hitting my face, I turned one last time. Someday, you'll realize what happened tonight, that you chose wrong, again. Dad's expression didn't change. Goodbye, Veronica. The door closed firmly, the lock clicking with finality. It was 3:15 a.m. raining, and I was alone on the street with nowhere to go. Rain soaked through my jacket as I stood on the sidewalk staring at the dark house I could no longer call home. The neighborhood was silent except for the steady patter of raindrops and the occasional distant car. Reality crashed over me in waves. I was homeless. At 22 years old, with a college degree and job offer, I had nowhere to sleep tonight. My hands trembled as I pulled out my phone, scrolling through contacts. Who could I possibly call at this hour? Who would believe me over the perfect Wilson family image, Samantha? My best friend from high school was attending graduate school about 30 minutes away. We hadn't talked much recently, both busy with our lives, but she was my only hope. The phone rang 5 times before a groggy voice answered. Veronica. It's the middle of the night. What's wrong? Sam, I'm sorry. My voice cracked. I wouldn't call if it wasn't an emergency. I need help. My parents just kicked me out. What? She sounded instantly alert. Where are you? Outside their house, in the rain, with a backpack. Jesus Christ, stay on the phone. I'm getting dressed. Are you safe right now? I looked around the empty street. Yes, just wet and scared. Start walking to the 24-hour diner on Maple. I'll meet you there in 25 minutes. Don't hang up. I began walking, phone pressed to my ear, as Samantha kept talking, asking simple questions to keep me focused, occasionally checking that I was still on my way to the diner. By the time I arrived, I was drenched and shivering, mascara streaking down my face. The night waitress looked concerned, but didn't comment as I slid into a booth by the window. 10 minutes later, Samantha's blue Honda pulled into the parking lot. She rushed inside, spotted me, and immediately wrapped me in a tight hug despite my wet clothes. What happened? She asked after ordering coffee for both of us. Between sobs, I explained everything: Ashley's escalating behavior, finding the pills, the setup with the spilled wine, and my parents' absolute refusal to hear my side. They didn't even let me explain, I whispered. 22 years as their daughter, and they couldn't give me 5 minutes to defend myself. Samantha reached across the table, squeezing my hand. You're staying with me, tonight, and as long as you need. I don't want to impose. Stop. This isn't imposing. This is what friends do. Her tone left no room for argument. That night, I slept on Samantha's couch in borrowed pajamas, emotionally and physically exhausted. The next morning, reality set in harder. I had no job, no permanent place to live, and most of my possessions were still at my parents' house. First things first, Samantha said, setting a mug of coffee in front of me. Let's make a list. Together, we outlined immediate needs, retrieving my belongings, securing temporary housing until my Boston job started transportation to interviews and apartment viewings. I should try to talk to them again, I said weakly. Maybe in daylight they'll be more reasonable. Samantha's expression was skeptical. Let me go with you. We drove to my parents' house around noon. I rang the doorbell, heart pounding. Mom answered, her expression instantly hardening when she saw me. What are you doing here? She asked coldly. I came to get my things and try to explain, I said. Please, Mom, 5 minutes. She glanced at Samantha, then back at me. Your father's not home. You can get your belongings, but be quick. Inside, the house felt foreign, as if I'd never lived there. Ashley was nowhere to be seen, probably at school. Mom stood with arms crossed watching as Samantha and I filled garbage bags with my clothes and personal items. Mom, I tried again. Those drugs weren't mine. I would never stop, she interrupted. I don't want to hear it. Your jealousy of Ashley has gone too far. Jealousy? I couldn't contain my bitter laugh. You think this is about jealousy? It always has been. You've resented her since she was born. Samantha, who had witnessed years of the unequal treatment, spoke up. Mrs. Wilson, with all due respect, Veronica has never been jealous. She's been neglected. There's a difference. Mom's face flushed. You don't know our family. I've known your family for 7 years, Samantha countered calmly. I've seen how differently you treat your daughters. You need to leave, Mom said, voice shaking. Both of you. We finished gathering my belongings in silence. As we carried the last bags to the door, I made one final attempt. Mom, I got a job in Boston. I'm starting over. I just wish you could believe in me just once. For a moment, something flickered in her eyes, perhaps doubt or regret, but it vanished quickly. Goodbye, Veronica. Back at Samantha's apartment, I called Aunt Marie, who was horrified by what had happened. I'm going over there right now, she declared. Hours later, she called back, voice tight with anger. They wouldn't listen to reason. Ashley put on quite a performance, crying about how scared she was to have drugs in the house. Your father threatened to cut contact if I kept enabling your behavior. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. It's not your fault, I assured her, though fresh tears streamed down my face. Thank you for trying. The next week passed in a blur of practical arrangements. I accelerated my plans for Boston, scheduling apartment viewings and arranging to start work a week earlier than planned. Samantha drove me to Boston twice for these appointments, refusing gas money despite her own tight graduate student budget. I found a tiny studio apartment in a somewhat rundown building, but it was clean and, most importantly, mine. With my first paycheck still weeks away, Aunt Marie insisted on helping with the security deposit. Consider it an investment in your fresh start, she said when I hesitated to accept. I believe in you, Veronica. I always have. Moving day arrived just 10 days after being thrown out. My new life fit into Samantha's Honda bags of clothes, a few boxes of books and personal items, and a small collection of kitchen essentials Aunt Marie had purchased as a housewarming gift. My apartment was bare bones. I slept on an air mattress for the first month. My furniture consisted of finds from thrift stores and curbsides. I furnished my kitchen with dollar store plates and utensils. But every item represented freedom. Every sparse corner a canvas for the future I was determined to build. The marketing coordinator position paid modestly, but I threw myself into the work with determination bordering on desperation. My supervisor, Lena, quickly noticed my drive. You're the first one here, last one to leave, she commented during my 3rd week. The client feedback has been excellent, but remember to pace yourself. This is a marathon, not a sprint. I didn't explain that work was my salvation. The hours at my desk, the only time my mind wasn't replaying that terrible night, or wondering if my family ever thought about me. Instead, I smiled and promised to take her advice while secretly planning to work through the weekend on a new campaign proposal. As months passed, my apartment slowly transformed from survival space to home. A proper bed replaced the air mattress. A small table and 2 chairs allowed me to stop eating cross-legged on the floor. A secondhand bookshelf held my growing collection of marketing texts and novels that provided escape. Financially, I lived on the edge. Student loan payments consumed a large portion of my income, leaving little for savings or emergencies. I ate ramen more often than I'd like to admit, and became an expert at stretching groceries beyond reasonable limits. But I was making it work, proving to myself what my family never believed: I was capable, resilient, and worthy. 6 months into my new life, I hit an emotional wall. The adrenaline of survival had faded, leaving raw grief in its wake. One Sunday morning, I found myself unable to get out of bed, tears flowing uncontrollably, as I finally processed the magnitude of what I'd lost. Samantha, who visited monthly, found me in this state during an unannounced visit. I think you need help, she said gently, after making me tea and listening to my breakdown. More help than friends can provide, as much as we want to. She was right. The following week, I used my employee assistance program to begin therapy with Dr. Winters, a compassionate woman who specialized in family trauma. Our first session opened floodgates I hadn't realized were barely contained. What happened that night was the culmination of a lifetime of unequal treatment, Dr. Winters explained after hearing my story. You're grieving not just the current loss of family, but the family you never truly had. Over the next year, weekly sessions helped me understand the dynamics that had shaped my life. I learned about narcissistic family systems, the golden child/scapegoat dynamic, and how patterns established in childhood continue into adulthood. Your sister was set up to fail, Dr. Winters explained during one particularly illuminating session. Being the miracle child placed impossible expectations on her. Her acting out is partly a response to that pressure. It doesn't excuse her behavior toward you, but it helps explain it. I also began building what Dr. Winters called a chosen family. Beyond Samantha and Aunt Marie, I cultivated friendships with coworkers and neighbors. I joined a book club and a hiking group, gradually creating a support network of people who valued me for exactly who I was. Professionally, my dedication paid off. After 18 months at Bennett Marketing, I received a promotion to junior account manager with a substantial raise. For the first time, I could afford small luxuries, dinner at restaurants. Occasionally new clothes that weren't from clearance racks, even a modest vacation to a nearby beach town. Holidays were the hardest times. Thanksgiving of that first year, I accepted Samantha's invitation to join her family. Christmas I spent with Aunt Marie, who drove to Boston, rather than attend the Wilson family gathering. These alternative celebrations were warm and loving, but the absence of my parents and sister lingered like a phantom limb. Occasionally, news filtered through from Aunt Marie about my family. Ashley's behavior had apparently worsened after I left. There were rumors of declining grades and trouble at school. My parents remained in denial, making excuses and increasing their efforts to protect and please their miracle child. Your mother asked about you last week, Aunt Marie mentioned casually during a phone call about 18 months after I'd left. She wanted to know if you were still in Boston. My heart jumped. What did you tell her? That you were doing well, but if she wanted details, she should call you directly. She never did. As my third year of independence approached, I realized I had created a life I was genuinely proud of. My tiny studio had been upgraded to a one-bedroom apartment in a safer neighborhood. I had friends who understood my worth. My career was advancing steadily. The pain hadn't disappeared, but it had transformed from acute agony to a dull ache that flared occasionally but no longer defined me. Then came the call that would begin the next chapter of this complicated story. The call came on an ordinary Tuesday evening as I was preparing dinner in my modest but comfortable apartment. 3.5 years had passed since that rainy night when my family had chosen Ashley over me for the final time. I'd built a life I was proud of, making senior account manager at Bennett Marketing, and even buying my first car, a used Honda that represented freedom and stability. When my phone lit up with Aunt Marie's name, I answered with the easy familiarity we'd developed through our monthly calls and occasional visits. Hey, Aunt Marie, you're early this week, everything okay? Her hesitation was immediate and concerning. Veronica, honey, I'm calling with some news. My hand gripped the phone tighter. What happened? Ashley was arrested last night. Drug possession. The wooden spoon I'd been stirring with clattered against the pot. What? The police found her with prescription pills and cocaine. She's facing serious charges because of the quantity. Your parents are beside themselves. I sank onto a kitchen chair, emotions swirling. Vindication mixed with concern, anger with a strange sense of relief that finally the truth about Ashley was undeniable. Have they called you? I asked. No, Aunt Marie replied. I found out from your mother's friend Carol, who works at the courthouse. They're keeping it quiet, trying to hire the best lawyer in the state. Of course they are, I said, unable to keep bitterness from my voice. There's more, Aunt Marie continued. Ashley's been in trouble before. This isn't her first arrest, just the first one they couldn't make disappear with money and connections. I wasn't entirely surprised. Ashley's behavior had been escalating for years before I left. Still, hearing confirmation sent a chill through me. What are they going to do? The judge has given her a choice: rehab or jail time. Your parents are pushing for a private treatment facility in Vermont. After ending the call, I sat motionless in my kitchen, dinner forgotten, as memories flooded back. The planted drugs, my father's rage, being thrown out at 3 a.m., the years of silence that followed. Part of me wanted to call to say I told you so, in the most scathing terms possible. Another part wanted to continue the clean break I'd maintained. In the end, I did nothing. This was their crisis to handle, just as I had handled mine alone. Life continued. I threw myself into work, dated occasionally, and expanded my social circle. 6 months passed with no further updates about Ashley until another unexpected call from Aunt Marie. Ashley left rehab against medical advice, she reported. She was there 3 weeks of a 90-day program. Your parents are frantic. I sighed, unsurprised. They can't force her to get help. That's not all, Veronica. Your father called me this morning. He asked for your number. My heart skipped. What did you tell him? That I needed your permission first. He seemed different. Humbled, maybe. I laughed humorlessly. 4 years too late. You don't have to decide now. Just think about it. I promised I would. But days passed with no decision. What could my father possibly say that would matter now? What words could bridge the canyon of betrayal and abandonment? A week later, my office phone rang with an unfamiliar number. Assuming it was a client, I answered professionally. Veronica Wilson speaking. A pause then. Veronica, it's your mother. I nearly dropped the phone. In 4 years, she hadn't reached out once. Mom, I stated flatly, neither a question nor a welcome. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, she began, voice trembling slightly. I understand that, but I need to talk to you. About Ashley, I surmised. Not about me. Her silence confirmed my assumption. What do you want, Mom? Things are bad, she admitted. Ashley's in trouble worse than before. Your father, he had a heart attack 3 days ago. Shock jolted through me. Despite everything, the thought of my father in medical danger affected me more than expected. Is he okay? It was minor. A warning, he's at Hartford Memorial. Her voice broke. He's asking for you. The familiar pull of family obligation tugged at me, but now I recognized it for what it was. I don't know if I can do that. Please, Veronica. I know we don't deserve it, but please. After ending the call, I sat at my desk staring blankly at my computer screen. 4 years of silence, and now they needed me. The irony wasn't lost on me. Part of me wanted to ignore the call to let them face their crisis alone, as they had forced me to face mine. But another voice, one that sounded suspiciously like Dr. Winter's, reminded me that responding to their need didn't mean forgiving the unforgivable. It meant making a choice based on who I wanted to be, not who they had been. I requested emergency personal days and drove the 2 hours to Hartford Memorial Hospital, with knots in my stomach. The hospital corridors felt surreal, as if I were walking through a dream. When I reached room 412, I paused outside the door, gathering courage. My father looked smaller in the hospital bed, diminished by the medical equipment surrounding him. My mother sat beside him, eyes widening when she saw me in the doorway. Veronica, she whispered, rising. You came. Dad turned his head slowly, his expression unreadable. Veronica. I stood awkwardly, neither entering fully nor leaving. I heard you had a heart attack. Mild one, he replied, voice raspy. Stress, the doctor says. An uncomfortable silence stretched between us. Years of unspoken words crowded the room, making it hard to breathe. How are you? Mom finally asked, as if inquiring about a casual acquaintance, rather than the daughter she hadn't spoken to in 4 years. I'm fine, I answered automatically. I'm a senior account manager now. I have my own apartment. Dad nodded slowly. Your aunt mentioned you were doing well. The small talk felt absurd given our history. I stepped further into the room, forcing myself to address the real issue. Mom said Ashley's in trouble again. Dad's expression tightened. She's making bad choices, dangerous ones, like the choices that got me thrown out of the house. The words escaped before I could stop them. Dad looked away, unable to meet my eyes. Mom stared at her hands, neither denied or defended. I should go, I said after another painful silence. I just wanted to make sure you were okay. As I turned to leave, Mom spoke suddenly. She told us about that night. I froze, hand on the doorframe. Ashley confessed, Mom continued, last year during one of her better periods in rehab. She told us she planted those drugs in your drawer. The validation I'd craved for years washed over me, but brought no joy, only a renewed sense of loss for what could have been. And you believed her, I said flatly. But you couldn't believe me. Dad spoke, his voice strained. We were wrong, Veronica. Terribly wrong. The admission hung in the air, 4 years too late to change anything. I left without another word, returning to my hotel room where I cried for the first time in years, releasing grief I hadn't realized I still carried. The next morning, a text from an unknown number appeared on my phone. It's Ashley. I'm at the Starbucks across from your hotel. Mom told me where you're staying. Please, just 15 minutes. Against my better judgment, I went. Ashley sat in a corner booth looking startlingly different from the entitled teenager I remembered. Her face was gaunt, her once perfect hair dull and hastily pulled back. At 20, she looked 30. "Thanks for coming," she said as I sat across from her. "I wasn't sure you would." "Neither was I replied honestly. She fidgeted with her coffee cup. "I owe you an apology. For everything, but especially for that night." "Yes, you do." "I was messed up back then. Already using, already spinning out of control." She looked up, meeting my eyes. "But that's not an excuse. What I did was unforgivable." "Why did you do it?" I asked the question that had haunted me for years. Ashley shrugged, a gesture both casual and defeated. "Because I could. Because I knew they would believe me over you. Because I was jealous." "Jealous," I repeated incredulously. "Of what you had everything. Of your freedom, your friends who actually cared about you, your plans to leave." Her eyes welled with tears. "Of how complete you were without their approval. I was nothing without it." I sat back, stunned by this perspective I'd never considered. Ashley, the golden child, envious of me, the forgotten one. "I need money," she said, abruptly changing tactics. "That's why I really wanted to see you. I'm in trouble with some people, dangerous people." And there it was, the real reason for this convenient apology and insight. "No," I said firmly, standing up. "I'm not giving you money. Please, Veronica, they'll hurt me. I wouldn't ask if— You wouldn't ask if you had any other option. I know." I gathered my purse. "I hope you get the help you need, Ashley. Genuinely. But it won't come from me." I left her there, feeling stronger with each step. The encounter clarified something important. I could acknowledge the pain of my past without being pulled back into its dysfunction. Returning to Boston, I resumed my life with a new sense of closure. The validation of knowing my parents finally recognized their mistake didn't heal all wounds, but it allowed me to release some of the heaviness I'd carried for years. 6 months passed with no further contact from my family. Then an email appeared from my father's subject line, simply, "Hello." The body contained only a brief message. "We're coming to Boston next weekend. Would you be willing to meet just to talk?" I stared at those words for a long time, weighing my options before typing a single word in response: maybe. 7 years can change everything or nothing at all. As I sat at a corner table in Riverside Cafe waiting for my father, I wondered which would be true for us. At 32, I was no longer the devastated young woman forced out in the rain, but a successful marketing executive with my own apartment, a healthy savings account, and a life built entirely on my own terms. The bell above the cafe door jingled, and my father entered. 7 years had aged him dramatically. His once dark hair was now mostly silver, deep lines etched around his eyes and mouth. He moved more slowly, scanning the cafe until his eyes met mine. I didn't stand to greet him. Some boundaries remained necessary. "Veronica," he said, sliding into the chair opposite me. "Thank you for agreeing to meet." "I was curious," I replied honestly, studying his face. "Your email didn't say much." He nodded, hands clasped tightly on the table. "I didn't trust myself to say the right things. I've failed at that too many times before." The waitress interrupted with coffee for both of us, giving me a moment to collect my thoughts. When she left, an uncomfortable silence descended. "How's your health?" I finally asked, defaulting to politeness. "Better. I've made changes. Doctor's orders." He hesitated. "Your mother wanted to come, but I thought one-on-one might be easier." I nodded, waiting. He hadn't crossed state lines for small talk. Dad took a deep breath. "I need to tell you about Ashley first. She hit rock bottom about 3 years ago, overdosed in a motel room. Someone called 911, thankfully." Despite everything, concern flickered through me. "Is she okay?" "Now, yes. That night was touch and go." His eyes clouded with the memory. "After she stabilized, the court ordered her into a long-term treatment program. 6 months minimum. It was the best thing that could have happened." He sipped his coffee, gathering himself. "She's been sober 2 years now, working as a peer counselor at the same facility that treated her. It's a complete turnaround." "I'm glad to hear that," I said, surprised to mean it. "The thing is," Dad continued, "her recovery process forced us all to face some hard truths, not just about her addiction, but about our family, about how we treated you." I tensed, unsure I wanted to hear this. "Ashley's counselor had us attend family therapy. It was illuminating, to say the least." He looked down. "We had to examine patterns that went back to before Ashley was even born. The pressure we put on her, The way we sidelined you. Sidelined is a generous term, I noted. He nodded, accepting the correction. Neglected, dismissed, treated unfairly at every turn. His voice wavered. And then, when you needed us most, we betrayed you completely. The acknowledgement so long awaited landed with unexpected weight. Why? The question escaped before I could stop it. Why was it so easy to throw me away? Dad's eyes filled with tears, something I'd witnessed only at Ashley's birth. There's no acceptable answer, Veronica. Nothing that justifies what we did. He paused. But if you're asking for understanding, I can try to explain, not excuse. I'm listening. When we had you, we were young, just starting our lives. You were wanted and loved, but in a normal way. He smiled sadly. When we tried for another baby, and couldn't, something broke in your mother. Each miscarriage destroyed her a little more. The doctors eventually told us to accept that one child was our limit. He sighed deeply. Then came the miracle pregnancy. After we'd given up, after so much pain, Ashley became the embodiment of every prayer answered, every hope fulfilled. We didn't just love her, we worshipped her, and in doing so, we lost sight of you. I was still your daughter, I said quietly. Yes, our amazing self-sufficient daughter who seemed to thrive despite our neglect. We told ourselves you were fine, that you understood, that your independence was a personality trait, not a survival mechanism. The accuracy of this observation stunned me. Dr. Winters had said similar things, but hearing it from my father was different. When Ashley started struggling, we couldn't see it clearly, he continued. Admitting her problems meant admitting our miracle was flawed, so we denied, made excuses, enabled her worst behaviors. And when she framed me, Dad's face contorted with shame. That night finding those drugs, it was like confirmation of our deepest fear, that our family wasn't special or blessed, that we'd failed as parents. It was easier to blame you than face that truth. You threw me out at 3 a.m, in the rain, without even letting me explain. Yes, no excuses, no justifications, just acknowledgement. Do you know what happened to me after that night? I asked. He shook his head. Aunt Marie would only say you were surviving. She refused to betray your confidence. I told him everything. The desperate call to Samantha, sleeping on her couch, collecting my belongings under Mom's cold supervision, the tiny apartment with an air mattress, working excessive hours to prove my worth, the breakdown that led to therapy. Dad listened without interrupting, tears occasionally slipping down his face. I'm so sorry, Veronica, he said when I finished. Those words are entirely inadequate, but they're true. I failed you in every possible way. Yes, you did. I don't expect forgiveness. I haven't earned it. He reached into his jacket and pulled out an envelope. Your mother wrote you a letter. She couldn't face saying these things in person, but she wanted you to have her apology too. I took the envelope, setting it aside without opening it. Ashley also wants to see you, he added, to make amends in person. She's in a much better place now, taking responsibility for her actions. I'll consider it, I said, non-committal. Dad nodded, accepting my reservation. We've all been in therapy individually and as a family. It doesn't undo the damage, but it's helped us understand how we got here. And where exactly is here? I asked. What do you want from this meeting, Dad? He considered carefully before answering. I don't have the right to want anything. I'm here to acknowledge the truth, offer my deepest apology, and open a door should you ever wish to walk through it. The sincerity in his voice was unmistakable. The father sitting before me was not the same man who had thrown me out that rainy night. This man had been humbled by consequence, transformed by remorse. I need time, I said finally. Of course. We've lost 7 years. There's no rush now. As we prepared to leave, Dad hesitated. There's one more thing. The night of your college graduation, when we left early for Ashley's recital. I've regretted that moment 1,000 times. You deserved better, and I'm sorry. It was such a small thing compared to later betrayals, yet hearing him acknowledge it validated a hurt I'd almost forgotten. Thank you for saying that, I replied. We parted with an awkward goodbye, neither of us attempting physical contact. I watched him walk away, shoulders bent with the weight of recognition too long delayed. That evening, I opened my mother's letter. Her familiar handwriting filled several pages, detailing her own journey from denial to painful awareness. Unlike Dad's careful, measured apology, Mom's words spilled across the page in emotional torrents. She wrote of her shame, her failure as a mother, her desperate wish to turn back time. 3 days later, I texted Ashley, "Coffee tomorrow." We met at the same cafe where I'd seen Dad. Like him, Ashley had changed dramatically, but in the opposite direction. Where he had aged beyond his years, she looked healthier than I remembered, her eyes clear, and focused, her movements calm and deliberate. "Thank you for meeting me," she said, echoing Dad's opening. "I'm still deciding if it was a good idea," I replied honestly. She nodded. "Fair enough. I wouldn't want to see me either if I were you." Our conversation was painful but necessary. Ashley didn't just apologize. She itemized her transgressions with unflinching specificity. The drugs she planted, the manipulation of our parents, the jealousy that had driven her actions. "I was so empty inside," she explained, "using drugs to fill the void, using Mom and Dad's devotion as a weapon. I hated myself and I took it out on you because you were everything I wasn't." "Which was what?" I asked, genuinely curious. "Whole, complete in yourself. You didn't need their approval to breathe. I couldn't exist without it." The irony wasn't lost on either of us. "Recovery taught me that their worship wasn't love," she continued. "Real love has boundaries. It allows for mistakes and growth. What they did to me was as damaging as what they did to you, just in different ways." I studied my sister's face, seeing true remorse in her eyes. "I'm glad you're better now." "I have good days and hard days. Addiction doesn't disappear. You just learn to manage it." She hesitated. "Would you consider coming to dinner sometime, just the four of us? A first step." 2 weeks later, I found myself sitting at my parents' dining table for the first time in 7 years. The house looked both familiar and foreign, like a place visited in a half-remembered dream. Photos of Ashley and me now shared equal space on the walls, including recent pictures Aunt Marie had shared with them. Dinner was awkward but not hostile. Mom kept wiping away tears. Dad asked careful questions about my career. Ashley acted as buffer and mediator. We were four strangers with a shared history trying to navigate a potential future. "We've been seeing a family therapist," Mom explained as she served dessert. "Dr. Linden suggested we establish new traditions, create new memories." "That sounds wise," I replied neutrally. "Only if you're open to it," Dad added quickly. "We understand if you're not ready." I appreciated that they weren't pushing for instant reconciliation or pretending everything was fixed. They were offering possibilities, not demands. Over the following months, we established a cautious relationship. Monthly dinners, occasional phone calls, small steps toward something new, if not quite forgiveness. During this time, I continued my own therapy with Dr. Winters, processing these unexpected developments. "Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting," she reminded me during one session. "It doesn't even mean resuming the same relationship. It means releasing the power the hurt has over you." "What if I'm not ready?" I asked. "Then you're not ready. Healing follows its own timeline." Gradually, I came to understand that moving forward didn't require erasing the past. I could acknowledge my parents' genuine remorse while maintaining boundaries based on hard-earned wisdom. I could cautiously allow Ashley into my life without trusting completely. I could accept that my family had changed without forgetting who they had been. The journey taught me lessons I never expected. That strength often comes from rejection. That believing in yourself when no one else does builds unshakable foundations. That people can change, but only when they face themselves honestly. That forgiveness is a process, not a destination. That family can be both chosen and born with different roles for each. Most importantly, I learned that healing doesn't mean returning to what was, but creating what could be. 7 years after being thrown out in the rain, I stood on solid ground of my own making, able to decide for myself what relationships deserve space in my life. The family we're slowly building isn't perfect. It carries scars and remembers wounds. But it's honest in a way it never was before. And perhaps that's the most anyone can ask, for truth, accountability, and the possibility of something better ahead. Have you ever had to rebuild a relationship after betrayal? Do you think some actions are truly unforgivable, or is forgiveness always possible with time and genuine remorse? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share. I'm grateful you took the time to listen to my journey, and I hope it helps anyone going through similar family struggles to know they're not alone. Sometimes our greatest strength emerges from our deepest pain and healing, while never easy is always possible.